And for somebody who did this for such a long time, what are your thoughts for these women, for these athletes in these conditions? Better earlier than later.
Yeah, I'm excited for these women. This is one of the deepest field ever held at the U.S. Olympic Trials, but they need to be smart today. You know, we've seen people tucking ice down in the top of their tops, trying to stay cool as long as possible, and I think a more conservative race is going to play out better here.
Is the winner of the women's 5,000 meters that was run on Monday evening in 93-degree temperatures. Elise Cranny felt really good in that race, and she felt good because she was running with her Bowerman teammate, Carissa Schweitzer, who's also going to Tokyo.
Cranny and Schweitzer have had a great start to their trials, going 1-2 in the 5,000. They come in here ranked with the 3rd and 4th fastest times ever by an American in this event. Cranny ran it for the first time this year, and here we see Emily Sisson.
A lot of people are saying, look to Emily Sisson to win this women's 10,000. It's about to start. You see multiple waves of athletes, and there's a good reason. 41 women have taken the gun to participate for a shot to Tokyo.
We already had a shoe come off there at the very beginning, but this is 41 women. Here we see trying to get that shoe back on, losing time already. She'll have to be really calm and collected. The race should not go out too fast. She'll have plenty of time to work her way back in here. We see they're keeping them separated for a while here. There's so many women on this track that this is a little bit dangerous as they'll come to cut in. There's 41 women that started here, and this is unusual in a 10,000 meters to see them come around 2 turns before they're allowed to cut in, but this is done to try to help prevent from falling and spilling and the jostling that will inevitably happen when they cut in and come together as one group.
Unfortunately, it was Elena Tabb of Allison Park, Pennsylvania, the athlete that had the problem with her shoe, and that's not the first time we have seen that in these Olympic trials. Certainly the case, that was the case in the men's 3,000 meter steeplechase with Sean McGorty. He was able to recover and make the final. Let's see what Elena Tabb can do over these 25 laps around Hayward Field.
Well, that was a pretty quick start. That was about a 70-second lap as I saw for the first lap of this race, which would be 4:40 mile pace, which is very, very quick. So I would assume that this will settle in a little bit more once the nerves get out and people settle into position. You know, I think people were nervous about that cut in, so many women coming together in one place on the inside lane, and I would expect that now we'll see this start to settle in a little bit, but Hurley really took that out in a 70-second first lap.
Cara, a lot of people look to you for your experience, your advice, your thoughts. If you were in this field, in these temperatures, how would you play this race?
You know, I would be waiting. I would be waiting till at least 8 kilometers before I did any moves, and it would depend on how confident I was in my kick. At my prime, I would have waited till 200 to go. At other stages, I probably would have gone at around 8K to squeeze it out with 5 laps to go. This is going to be fascinating. We get to watch this whole race unfold, and we get to see all the different strategies play out. But I think in the heat, you need to protect your body early on. The more relaxed you can be, the less you press, the better you will be overall later in the race.
Lauren Hurley paces the field at the moment, the former triathlete who competed collegiately for Clemson. She hails from Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. She is at the front at the moment. You know, thinking about the temperatures, because it is a topic, that's why we're staging this event earlier in the day. You know, the front runners in the 5,000, Elise Cranny, Carissa Schweitzer, Rachel Schneider, all going to Tokyo. That was the first thing that they commented on, is how they had to be clever architects of their own race in the 5K because of those temperatures.
Yeah, you know, the heat plays a big role. We saw a lot of ice vests at the beginning here. I liked how Gwen Jorgensen kept her vest on until the very last second. That is what you want to do. You want to keep it as long as possible. You know, there's all sorts of things you can do to help yourself during the heat. Most of these women are not wearing deodorant today. They aren't wearing sunscreen. They aren't wearing lotion. You know, they're tucking ice down in their uniforms before the race started. They were wearing ice vests as long as possible. They definitely did not warm up as much as they normally do, and they didn't warm up with as many clothes as they normally have. All these things are to keep cool as long as possible and to let your body stay calm as long as possible, because it's inevitable that the heat will set in today as these temperatures continue to rise, as the race progresses, and you just want to protect your body as much as possible.
Well, let's go down trackside and join Lewis Johnson. How is it down there, Lewis?
Well, Jeff, it's really hot down here. That's really an understatement. Track temperature says about 82. I would guess that the temperature is probably over 100 on the track itself. and just a dangerously hot weekend. And I would say that place where everybody gets ready, the warm-up area, you could have called it, changed the name to the Stay Cool area. All of these athletes were doing what they could to try and stay cool area. The most that we saw were these ice vests. We also saw athletes with cool towels around their neck, like that yellow one there, and then some other devices on the wrist. I spoke with several coaches back there, and they said that most athletes went out for a little jog about 1 hour before this race started, just 15 to 20 minutes, and once they came back, they put the ice vest on, and they wore them through stretching, and about 75% of them wore them all the way out here to the track. Everyone happy that the race is rescheduled, and one coach said if it had not been rescheduled, he would have called it a death march if this race had been run in the afternoon. Lee?
Good thing is, behind where we're talking to you from, behind the grandstand here on the front stretch out the back in the warm-up area, that was covered in shade this morning. So that was at least some respite for the women to get going. There is Rio triathlon gold medalist Gwen Jorgensen, and Cara, you witnessed her being one of, if not the last, to take her ice vest off.
Yeah, I thought that was a really smart move by her. You know, you want it on as long as possible. And we also saw Rachel Schneider with the ice on her wrists. You know, wrists and back of neck are immediate cooling points for the body. We saw a lot of people dumping ice or dumping water on their wrists and the back of their neck right before they started. A lot of people tucking, again, the ice into their uniforms, doing anything they can to keep the body cool as possible, and psychologically just knowing that you're doing something to fight it. It helps a lot.
21 laps to go here at Hayward Field in the women's 10,000. Lauren Hurley continues to pace this field over Natasha Rogers, Emily Sisson, Sarah Hall, runner-up in the London Marathon, and then Elise Kranick, Carissa Schweitzer. Wayne Kalati is in there, and Rachel Schneider, who finished third in the women's 5,000 earlier this week, in a good position as well.
You know, they have really settled in now. We see Sisson coming to the front now because they've been running a few 79-second laps, and she thinks maybe this is a little too dwindling for her. She doesn't want it to come down to a blistering last 3 laps, so she's thinking now, maybe I should stretch this out a little bit. This is a risky move, you know. Sisson is certainly one of the best women in this field, one of the fastest women in this field, but it is still early on in the race. They still have 20 laps to run, so this is a little bit risky to be pushing from this far out.
We saw Emily in the Olympic marathon trials in February of 2020 in Atlanta. Unfortunately, she was not one of the top 3 in that race. She had to drop out after mile 22. That was pretty frustrating personally. So this is another opportunity. This is another shot to represent Team USA for Emily Sisson.
You know, Emily Sisson trains in Arizona where it is blistering hot, so she's used to the heat, but she's not used to the humidity. So this is an interesting tactic by her to take it here. And she's followed closely by Natasha Rogers, who in 2012 finished second at the U.S. Olympic trials, but did not have the standard and was not able to go on to the London Games. And she's fought a lot the last few years. She's dealt with injuries, she's dealt with depression, but she's really found her way at the Hanson's Brook Project, and she comes out here as one of the fastest seeded times.
Emily Sisson looking comfortable up front. 19 laps to go here at Hayward. Here's Sarah Hall moving into third. That blue top right there at the age of 38 with all of the national championships she's had. She's had 8 national road championships in 2019. That doubled as the U.S. championship as far as track as well. But this is her big shot. This is her big shot to get an Olympic berth and represent Team USA in Tokyo.
You know, Sarah has been running at the elite level for such a long time. She's competed in the Olympic trials in the 1500, the steeplechase, the 5K, the marathon, and now the 10K. She is one of the most versatile athletes that America has ever had. She ran the second fastest marathon time by an American last December, only behind bronze medalist Dina Castor. She is a jack of all trades, and it's been really exciting to watch her career flourish at age 38. She's a mom to 4 girls, Hannah, Maya, Jasmine, and Lily, who are all here to support her today.
This is perfect.
She's coached by her husband, Ryan Hall, marathon superstar, who we see right now on our screen.
And guess what? They're not only super talented at the sport that they love, but they're pretty good at improvising as well, because when they arrived in Eugene, Well, of course, there were rental cars wanted by everybody, and there was a little bit of a shortage. So they had to be clever and say, well, we need some wheels. We'll get a U-Haul.
It was very clever. I love this picture of Ryan behind the wheel there. But you know, that is the Halls. They just get it done. They travel a lot. They are adaptable. And that's how they've been their whole career. So it's no surprise to me that they figured out the car in a pinch, no problem.
It is a warm day in Eugene, Oregon, Tracktown, USA, especially for the women of the 10,000 meters. Top 3 will go to Tokyo. It's Emily Sisson who leads, the 29-year-old from Missouri. Out front, she hasn't paced the entire way, but she's enjoying some clear track ahead at the moment.
You know, she has picked this pace up a little bit as we can see everyone strung out and the field starting to string out. You know, all the favorites are sticking with her. There are 13 women with that Olympic standard time. So she has, you know, just tightened the screws a little bit at this point. Nothing dramatic, but just enough to make some separation happening in the race that's really pulling the elite women away from the rest of the field.
The size of the field is worth noting. We mentioned at the beginning of the broadcast, 41 athletes checked in and took the gun. The last time we had an Olympic trials, 2016, there were 24 starters. So this is a sizable field and a significant increase. Enough met the US trial standard. The Olympic standard, if you're interested, you must meet 31 minutes, 25 seconds or better. And there, of the 41, there are 13 women in this field who have already achieved that.
This is an extremely deep field that we have right now. This is one of the deeper distance races that you'll see at the U.S. Olympic trials, and it's really exciting to see so many women with a legitimate shot at that Olympic team.
Kara, as you know all too well, over the past 5 years, shoes, spikes, and shoe and spike technology has been a big talking point, and Nike has been at the forefront of that. If you go all the way back to the 2016 trials, the 2016 Olympics in Rio, and the technology behind it to assist the runners, to return some energy, if you wish, to them and to look better, look after the athletes better. Nike came out with the Vaporfly, and it was a technological switch, an advancement that the sport hadn't seen. And over the past 5 years, we've seen records tumble. We've seen athletes performing at levels that they have never before. We haven't seen numbers that we thought. Look at the month of June. Just for instance, in the women's 10,000 meters, we saw Dutch runner Sifan Hassan break the 10K record, and just 2 days later, Letzenbet Gidey broke it again. So to my point about the records, whatever the distance being smashed, and numbers, pretty unbelievable numbers being achieved. What's your take on it and the place in the sport? As I mentioned, Nike got this ball rolling. Other companies have followed suit with their own version of the technology, with the carbon plate in the shoe, with the foam, the design of the shoe and the spike. What's your take on it as we head towards another Olympics?
You know, I think we see a lot of records in free fall right now. We see personal bests in free fall, and that's okay. We have to adapt to what the new times mean. We have to adapt to what the data is telling us. You know, you don't put the shoe on and it doesn't just make you an Olympic athlete. However, it does help you run faster in practice, recover better, especially the road shoes help you recover better. So it does enhance what you can do in training and in performance. But at this point, you know, we're seeing other companies, Adidas, New Balance, Hoka, Puma, Asics, Brooke, come out with their own models, which is helping to level the playing field a bit here. And so at this point, I think as fans, we need sort of a readjustment of what times mean, because records are going to continue to fall the rest of the summer.
Well, you've also seen shoe companies and athletic companies show incredible understanding and flexibility. Take Rachel Schneider, who qualified for the US Olympic team in the women's 5,000. Rachel's in this race as well. For 6 years, she ran with Under Armour and represented Under Armour. They don't have that technology, so she now represents Hoka, and Under Armour said, go do it. You got to do it if you're going to be competitive, right?
Absolutely. You cannot be competitive at this stage without the technology at this point. And it seems like, I would say, most, if not all, of the women in this race right now are wearing new technology.
14 laps left in the women's 10,000 meters. And at this current pace being set by Emily Sisson, they're on Olympic qualifying standard pace. Running in the mid 80-degree temperature range at the moment, with it on the rise pretty rapidly. That hasn't affected Emily Sisson, leading the way with under 14 laps to go at Hayward Field in the women's 10,000 meters to determine which three athletes represent Team USA. If you look at 4th and 5th in the white tops, the teammates from the Bowerman Track Club, Elise Cranny and Carissa Schweitzer. Will they do the double, meaning the 5,000, 10,000? Will they represent Team USA in both? It's a strong possibility.
A very strong possibility. You know, if they make this team, only they will know. They'll have the opportunity to take some time and make that decision. But in speaking to their coach, Lane Flanagan, and hearing other interviews, if they make that, they believe, as they should, that they will have earned that opportunity to run both in Tokyo, and that is a very real possibility for them. You know, we've seen Sisson now lead for about 8 laps. She looks awfully controlled and relaxed. And, you know, this is probably a little quicker than some of these women thought they were going to be running. They are running the Olympic standard qualifying pace, which is quite quick. It's 5:03 per mile pace. And so everyone knew they had to go with this. They couldn't let Sisson go ahead and open up a 20-second gap on the field. That would be too much to close down, especially in these conditions. So she sort of forced the hand of everyone here to go and run an honest pace in really difficult circumstances.
How big a deal is it when you've got your teammate with you? And I ask you that question because Elise Cranny said, you know, endurance running, distance running rather, is pretty much an individual sport. But when I had my teammate Carissa Schweitzer with me, when Carissa was ahead or I was ahead, it felt like a training day.
Oh, absolutely. You know, I used to train with Shalane Flanagan, and when we ran the Olympic trials in 2012, there was so much comfort in seeing her at the Olympic Games, just looking over and seeing her. It doesn't seem so scary. It doesn't seem so tense. It seems like, hey, this is what we do every day. We train together every day. And there's a lot of just mental calmness that comes with having a teammate with you. We also see at the back of that pack Emily Enfeld, who also trains with Elise Cranny and Carissa Schweitzer. And she herself is a Rio Olympian in this event. She's known for her crazy wild finishes. She kicked her way into a bronze at the 2015 World Championships in this event.
10 women have broken away. Wayne Kaladi is at the back of that pack, and Wayne's lost several positions. One of the biggest, most recent movers is Edna Kurgat. Keep an eye on Edna. She's hip number 13, and at the moment she is running around about 7th place.
Kurgat had a great collegiate career at New Mexico with Kaladi. They actually trained together there. She's in the World Class Army program, and she's at the back of that lead pack, but she's hanging in there as the race is going along here.
She became a U.S. citizen just this year, Edna Kurgat, in February. She grew up in Kenya at 7,000 feet above sea level. So when you think about training at altitude like so many of these women do, when it's been part of your life, it's in your DNA, right? It's in your system. Although Kurgat is dropping off the back of this pack. Less than 11 laps to go into the second half, well into the second half of this women's 10,000 meters. The road to Tokyo is getting defined here at Hayward Field in the women's 10K. Who are going to be the three who make the cut?
You know, Lee, now we're starting to see athletes be lapped. You know, this front pack now is 8 women strong. We see Sisson, we see Rogers, Hall, Cranny, Schweitzer, Monson, Schneider, and Enfeld on the back. All 8 women are in contention. Monson does not have the standard, but she's certainly capable of it. And now they're beginning to lap other runners as they come around here.
And here comes Elise Cranny running in the mid-80s, 85 degrees in this 10,000 meter final. And Elise Cranny now starts to move her way up to second. Let's check in with Lewis Johnson.
Well, Lee, this rescheduled 10K is an example of the officials doing their best to help these athletes deal with the extreme afternoon heat here in Eugene. And we expect that this is nothing compared to the expected heat and very high humidity in Tokyo, where the athletes will face some of the most challenging conditions in the history of the Olympic Games. So track and field gets underway on July 30th, and the temperatures recorded in Tokyo in late July and into early August are very similar to what the athletes experienced at the 96 Atlanta Games. Athens in 2004, 08 in Beijing, very hot and extremely humid. So the longer events at the Olympics, the marathons and the race walks, have actually been moved 500 miles to the north of Japan in Sapporo, where the humidity and heat index are expected to be much lower. And again, this is just an example of what they will experience, but much hotter when we get to Japan.
I want to correct, Monson does have that standard, so she is looking great. All of these women have the standard that are in the contention right now. You know, whoever qualifies for Tokyo is going to have to do some special training to prepare for that race. You know, when it's hot and humid like that, you have to prepare. You can't just wing it. So I expect whoever makes this team will be doing lots of runs in double sweats, unbreathable fabric, you know, honestly wearing like sauna suits, taking saunas, doing things to help their bodies acclimate so that when they get to Tokyo, they can hit the ground running.
Fourth runner in shot is Alicia Monson, the 23-year-old from Wisconsin. She was a standout at the University of Wisconsin. She won the 2019 NCAA 5K, and she was the 2018-2019 Big Ten cross-country champ. She has been quietly sneaking her way up in the draft of Carissa Schweitzer and Elise Cranny, and is very well placed with less than 9 laps to go. Nine laps remaining, and Emily Sisson, Elise Cranny, Carissa Schweitzer, the top 3. There is no great surprise to be saying that at this stage of the race.
There really isn't. All of these women are in contention. I'm excited to see Monson up there. You know, she doesn't have some of the accolades of these other women, but her training has been going extremely well, and especially her strength-based training. She had an incredible 17-mile run at 6:03 pace up at altitude, but she's been focusing on her speed and running 1500s to be ready for this. She looks awfully relaxed. We have a race on our hands. This is such an incredible race going on right now. And there starts to be a little bit of separation between 4th and 5th here as we head with just over 8 laps to go.
So you took the words out of my mouth there, Cara. I was about to say there's a breakaway group of 7, and the gap between Rachel Schneider and Emily Infeld. However, now that front group of 7 has separated. The top 4 of Emily Sisson.
These women are running so well for the heat. I have to say, Emily Sisson is just pulling this train. They committed to her, but she is really doing the work. It is so hard to lead a championship race like this, and it is so hard in these sorts of conditions. But she has been constantly cranking out 75, 74-second lap. She just ran a 73-second lap, and that's why we're starting to see the separation. This pace is starting to wear on the field.
Monson has done well to tag onto the back to remain in that front-running quartet. And then it's Rachel Schneider in the orange top leading that second trio. And Rachel's trying to tag onto the back as well. Wouldn't that be something if the same 3 women who represented Team USA, who won the right to represent Team USA in Tokyo in the 5K, do it in the 10,000 meters as well.
And this is a tough spot for Schneider because, you know, she's already on that Olympic team. So mentally, she has to fight the battle of, do I go up, do I close that gap and get on that pack, or am I happy because I'm already headed to Tokyo? She has to make a decision in the next lap or so because this gap continues to open up. And now things start to get a little bit messy as well as they have to lap runners. This is bothersome for them. You know, they have to maneuver the traffic, they have to get around, they're trying to cut in and not cut each other off. So lapping people becomes sort of sloppy at this stage in the race.
What a year for the 29-year-old Rachel Schneider. She is heading off to the Olympics. We already know that. And then she's going to get married in the fall. She is engaged to her longtime coach, Mike Smith. They are just giddy at the prospect of tying the knot. And to do that after her maiden Olympic appearance will be truly special. Can she do it in 2 events is the question to be answered.
She certainly can, but she needs to get back on that pack. That is the Olympic team ahead of her. Unless someone blows up due to the heat, that is the race she needs to get herself up into, and it's not that much ground to make up. She still has 6 laps to run to close that gap, but she really needs to make sure that she is on that pack so that when the kicking starts, she's in contention.
Emily Sisson continues to lead this field, and she's done that for perhaps all but 5 laps in this race over Elise Cranny, Carissa Schweitzer, Alicia Monson, and then Rachel Schneider trying to bridge that gap to get up with that top foursome. Here's Lewis Johnson.
Well, Lee, you have to wonder at some point, how do we keep up with all of these athletes, 41 of them who started, as they begin to move around the track, and of course, some of the athletes begin to get lapped. Well, just at the finish line, you'll see 2 rows of officials in white shirts with clipboards in front of them. And each person is assigned 2 athletes to watch as they circle the track. And as each of those athletes that they watch circles, they put a mark by their name to make sure that they can keep the exact amount of laps recorded for that individual athlete. It is very important that they, of course, keep the laps straight, but that's what this group in the first row here is doing, the first and second row, watching their 2 athletes and making the mark to keep everything honest for this final. Lee?
5 laps to go. That's it in the women's 10,000 meters, and this race still being led by Emily Sisson of Missouri, trying to qualify for her first Olympic team. She's represented Team USA at World Championship level, but never at the Olympic Games. And she is being chased down and shadowed by the winner of the 5,000 meters, Elise Cranny, who qualified for her first Olympic team earlier this week on Monday.
This is such a gutsy race by Sisson. She has taken control of this race early on and just put a target on her back. Everyone was content to just sit behind her, let her drag them through. But she continues to squeeze the pace a half a second or so every lap or so and keeps getting it down. And that's why we start to see some separation now. Cranny has gone with her. Monson has worked her way up, but Schneider fell back a little bit. Now we see her back on the back, but Sisson is making this difficult. She's making the other athletes question, how bad do I want to win? Do I just want to get through? Do I want to keep on this pace? She knows what she's doing. She's seen Cranny kick her way to the 5K title. She's seen Schweitzer kick her way into that team. And she says, you know what? I want to get out and I want to get ahead and I want to push this so that I don't get caught in a kick finish.
Final 4 laps of the women's 10,000 meters coming up. And Emily Sisson has dropped Elise Cranny off. Cranny has fallen back to 3rd. Alicia Monson is now up into 2nd, and then Carissa Schweitzer in 4th. Sisson is making this race her own.
Sisson is running so well and it's such in control. You know, she just ran a 72-second lap. I was nervous when she went to the front early in the race, but she knew her fitness and she knew she was ready to run in this heat. She has just been slowly but surely tightening the screws, bringing the pace down. And you can see it has splintered the field. She has broken away now, and she's en route with 3.5 laps to go.
February of 2020, on a cold, windy day in Atlanta, Georgia, she had one of the most disappointing defeats and forced withdrawals of her career at marathon trials. Perhaps it has been ever since that day she has been working on this as a point of redemption.
100%.
She's not there yet, but she's close.
You know, she said that was the most disappointing race of her career to have to drop out of the U.S. Olympic marathon trials. And, you know, she admitted that she had some trouble getting her track legs back. She said the pandemic year actually helped her. She had an extra year to shake out that marathon training, get her speed back. She's run sub, 3 incredible 5Ks this year, going sub 15 minutes in preparation for this. She has the speed, she has the strength from all of her marathon training, and right now she is looking like the one who has just controlled this race, the one to beat. She's led all but 4 laps of this race.
Cranny has faded. Cranny's now fallen behind her teammate, Carissa Schweitzer, to 4th. So at the moment, the Olympic team is Sisson, Monson, and Schweitzer inside the final 3 laps. And Emily Sisson has more than a 25-meter lead over Alicia Monson. How brutal is it in this heat to be running this pace?
This is so hard. Right now, everything inside is boiling. You know, the heat is coming out of your forehead. You can't get any reprieve from it. I mean, this is just a brutal way to make an Olympic team. But she knows what she's going to face in Tokyo. She knows what the conditions are going to be. And you know what? She came out here. She did not want to lose in a kick finish. She said, I'm going to make this honest from the beginning. I'm going to take this out. And here we see Monson, who is running an absolutely incredibly smart and amazing race. She is in 2nd place here with just 2 laps to go. She has been so smart, moved her way up, covered the moves, and now she finds herself in 2nd place.
That is about a 35 meter lead. It may make it 43. I was doing that just by the naked eye, standing up and looking down at the track. But look at this. What a dominant performance from Emily Sisson of Chesterfield, Missouri. She has led all but 4 laps of this 25-lap women's 10K.
The last 5 laps, she has just gotten faster and faster and faster, and I cannot tell you how hard that is. She isn't with a pack of women. She has no one to look up at. She is just getting this from within herself. She is continuing to put down the hammer and continuing to pull away more and more and more, and that is all coming from within herself.
What a performance. In 85-degree heat, this women's 10K was moved earlier in the day because projected triple-digit temperatures here at Hayward Field in Eugene, Oregon. And if you're going to make your first Olympic team, what a way to do it. You're going to hear the bell here in a moment for Emily Sisson.
This is such an incredible effort. What a hard-fought, well-earned spot she's getting here right now. She has just continued to ratchet that pace faster and faster and faster with each lap, all on her own, by her own will. She took control early. Everyone was feeding off of her. She had no energy to feed off of. She had to find it from within herself, and she has just controlled this field, and she's obliterated this field.
The gap is colossal between first and second, let alone first to third. What a commanding performance from this 29-year-old. Emily Sisson is in a race of her own. And she's not easing up either.
No, she's going to go all the way. Sisson has proven how tough she is mentally, how tough she is physically. To come back from the disappointment in the marathon trials and to just dominate here today says so much about her mental toughness.
She's into the home stretch now. She's easily going to take care of the Olympic standard at 31:25. And it may be close to a trials record. It's going to be a trials record. She beats Dina Caster's trials record of 31:09 in a 31:03. New Olympic trials record for Emily Sisson. Alicia Monson. She played a really clever race. Carissa Schweitzer comes across second in a storming final lap. Alicia Monson, there's your 3 Olympians right there. Emily Sisson, Carissa Schweitzer, she's going to do it in both the 5,000 and 10,000 for Team USA, and Alicia Monson.
You know, Lee, this was where Emily Sisson just started ratcheting that pace down. It was ever so slightly, a little bit, a quarter of a second here, a half a second here, and she took the lead and she really strung that field out, and she just kept applying that pressure. She was unrelenting, and it really started to break this race wide open.
And that was the last time that we saw anybody even close to Emily Sisson, who comes home in a new Olympic trials record of 31 minutes, 3 seconds, .82 to eclipse Dina Caster's 2004 record. What a performance. She's represented Team USA at World Championships. She's now going to represent Team USA at an Olympic Games.